Hey everybody, welcome to another World of Warships replay, once again in the Iwaki, and I've ended up on Big Race. So the teams in this match are pretty balanced. Each team has a single destroyer, 5 cruisers, 4 battleships, and 2 carriers. I've ended up in the northeast spawn. Now, normally I prefer the southwest spawns for both teams. It puts you closer to the little cove in the southwest corner there, which is generally where destroyers go. So in the Iwaki, getting that spawn means you can get in there quickly and fuck up the destroyers, then push through and kill any careless battleships lurking in the back. However, this northeast spawn puts you a lot closer to the enemy, in much more open water, and the Iwaki, despite being quite fast, doesn't have the agility of a destroyer and obviously doesn't have the concealment value either. And so being spotted that early in the game can end pretty poorly. Nevertheless, I decide to make do with what I've got, and since the enemy only have a single destroyer anyway, it's probably not going to be that much of a problem spawning up here instead of down in the Thunderdome. My division mate Fenji is still in the Wyoming that he was in before. He's grinding up to get the Langley, the tier 4 US carrier, which branches off from the battleship tree at tier 4 and then continues all the way down through to tier 10, at which point you get the USS Midway, which has fucking jets on it. The tier 10 carriers are quite a sight to behold. First thing lit is an enemy Kuma. Now at this range, I'm firing AP, but I would be better off shooting HE. As you can see, the rounds are just pinging off and not really doing much damage. Although the Kuma has very little armor and is very easy to penetrate with 140mm AP rounds, its deck is a little hardier than its belt is, and so it's much easier to engage it at close range and basically punch it just through the belt. At longer ranges, HE is a better choice, and this holds true for the destroyers as well. When engaging Kumas and Tenryus and Phoenixes and Omahas, basically all the lightly armored cruisers, it's much easier to citadel them at close range shooting flat than at long range shooting plunging fire. This doesn't really hold as true as you go up in tier. Once you start getting 5 and 8 inch guns, particularly the 8 inch guns, they can actually plunge through and citadel things, as you would have seen in my Atago matches. So I do switch back to HE here and begin engaging the Tenryu. Looks like there's quite a few enemy ships up here. Unfortunately, none of my torpedoes ended up finding a target. And we've already lost one of our own cruisers there. Pull behind this island for a bit of cover, and I wait and see what the enemy do. Now one of their carriers has already been spotted. Looks like our carrier's being proactive about removing the other carrier from the game. So he's just sent his torp bombers down there and they're on the way back now. Obviously they've expended their load of torpedoes and have failed to kill that carrier. Looks like I might be able to get some torps into these guys, so I drop a spread and then take pretty serious amount of hits off the St. Louis. The St. Louis is about the last thing you ever want to be caught near in really any lightly armoured ship. It's even worse to fight in destroyers because you have that many less hit points, and you're very easily critted. It's not as bad in this thing, but it is still unpleasant. Thankfully for me, he floats straight into my torpedoes, which removes him from the game nice and fast. And then I'm able to shift some fire onto South Carolina and quickly zip around, finish off the Tenryu here. Or at least try to, and miss all of those shots. Horrible shooting on my part. It's like the Kuma's beached himself over there, and the Kawachi is a sitting duck. I keep up a withering fire of HE on him to try and light some fires as I close the range a little. I'm playing it a bit fast and loose with my hit points. I can't really afford to keep this up, but I see the chance at a torpedo launch here, and so I quickly fire some off, almost certainly one of those is going to get eaten by the beach. But hopefully he will slow down just enough to hit some of them. Meanwhile, the enemy torpedo bombers are attacking Fenji. My anti-aircraft is helping out as best it can, but the Iwaki does not have much in the way of anti-aircraft. Much like the other low-tier Japanese cruisers, it's really not built for it. Kuma here is still kicking, so I begin putting some more fire on him. Meanwhile, I have missed the South Carolina with all those torps, but I do manage to set it on fire. As I pull in behind Fenji for a moment, I begin shifting to the Kawachi instead.
Don't fire at your allies.
Oops. I winged Fenji there with an HE shell. I don't think it hurt him that much. Well, I hope not anyway, he's in a battleship. But all the same, don't fire from behind friendly ships. At least not that close behind them, unless you're okay with knocking some hit points off. By the same token, if there is a friendly ship firing at something, don't get between it and its target at close range, because the shells will hit you. Obviously, if they're arcing their shells, but you don't have to worry as much, but at very close range, where the shells are almost flat, yep, you're going to get hit. Torpedoes there, probably from that Kuma. I'm not sure if they were meant for me or for Fenji, but they missed us both. And the Kuma is burning pretty badly and caught in the open. Get a couple more hits in for good measure. It's pretty much boned at this point. As am I, looking at all those ships that are shooting at me. Single torpedo zips past me. Don't think that hit anything in particular. And so now I quickly begin selecting my next target. I fire off one spread, hoping to catch a South Carolina as he nears the blue line, and another one for the second South Carolina, the one that's got most of his hit points there. And then I begin putting some fire on the Kawachi, since he's very low on hit points and I can finish him off pretty comfortably with my guns. Meanwhile, the enemy torp bombers are once again lingering around. Can't quite tell if they're going for me or if they're going for Fenji. Looks like me, since Fenji is actually doubled back. And I'm now the only thing in this area. But I'm able to take down one of the aircraft. And then that guy dies, and that guy dies, and I pick up a double strike award, and shoot down another plane, and oh man. Talk about a blaze of glory. So it would have been nicer to survive that one, but it's always fun to knock out two ships within about a second of each other. I honestly didn't expect that result. I really didn't think that'd be quite so successful. But as I said in chat, my work here is done. The Iwaki plays really well into a sort of balls to the wall, fast, aggressive playstyle. Not as well as it used to before its mobility was a little bit nerfed. Indirectly, of course, when they changed the way ships in general handle. But it's still quite good at it. The key aspect is to try and get other ships to take the hits while you zip in, shit out torpedoes at everyone, and Citadel hit all the other Japanese cruisers. The fact that you get smoke also helps with this. It's not real good. Smoke got nerfed pretty heavily, and I'm pretty sure the Iwaki's smoke is a lot less good than the typical destroyer smoke. I think it doesn't fill for as long, and the recharge time is a bit longer or something. I'll have to look up the specifics at some point, but I just know that it's, you know, it's been balanced to account for the fact that it is actually being used on a cruiser instead of a destroyer. It is the only cruiser currently in the game that gets smoke. The Kitakami gets it as well, but the Kitakami hasn't been in the store yet. I don't know when or if it's coming back. I kind of hope it isn't, because I'm sick of getting team killed by them. In Alpha and Closed Beta, I had a lot of trouble with puppies on my own team launching 20 or 40 torpedoes at enemy ships they couldn't hit while I was in front of them, basically. I mean, you've probably all seen puppies team kill in destroyers because they don't know how the fuck torpedoes work. Just imagine that, but worse, and that's basically the Kitakami experience. It's pretty much down to the battleships on our team now, with one carrier still up. He does still have 2 squadrons of torpedo bombers at least. There's one enemy carrier left who has not been spotted, and then 1 cruiser and 1 battleship who is currently being focused by Fenji and the other battleships nearby. South Carolina doesn't have much survivability going for it. I'm not actually sure how thick its belt armor is, but I can tell you that every time I see one, I Citadel hit it in my own battleships, and it just doesn't seem very survivable against anything in particular. They don't stand up well to torpedoes, and even things like the Kawachi and Myogi will consistently Citadel hit it. When it's put up against something like a Congo, it just dies on its ass. It's really quite miserable to watch. So, much like the Kawachi, it's not the kind of ship you want to keep. You want to get out of it as quickly as possible and start playing something actually fun. The Wyoming is meh. The New York, some people like, I wasn't a fan of. The New Mexico is really the shining star of the US battleship tree, at least until you get to Tier 8 when you get into your sort of more modern battleships. Down he goes. And we do still have a cruiser up, he's just over there. Probably not going to last very long. And then they do have that carrier somewhere as well. But of course it is encounter, we are capping. And so the carrier will have to either run and hide and let us cap out, or actually find a way to intervene. Got a nice view of the air battle going on there. Enemy Omaha's hell-bent on killing that Langley. It's not really going to do him any favours. He should be trying to work on the battleships in cap. A daunting target, but the Omaha does have torpedoes, and its guns are actually quite good for a Tier 5 cruiser, so, I mean, if he tried, he could probably kill at least one of these guys, honestly. Does take down the carrier, but he's probably going to die himself pretty soon. Either that or we'll end up capping out. At this point, Fenji does leave the cap. Obviously he wants to go kill the enemy Omaha, but he bumps into the rocks instead. Battleships can be very difficult to maneuver in a tight space, even the ones that turn well, like the, well, basically all the US battleships and Warspite. Because despite their turning circles, you still have the rudder shift time to contend with, and they can also be very difficult to back off of rocks for that exact reason. Some of the battleships have rudder shifts reaching into, 20 odd seconds. I think some of them are almost half a minute for a full rudder shift, or, well, not a full rudder shift, but from neutral to full on one side. So if you need to reverse the rudder, that's nearly a whole minute it takes for the ship to respond, which is pretty difficult to get used to. And for that reason as well, using A and D as steering input can cause you to come undone very fast. It's something I keep doing out of bad habit, and it does not end well. A and D might work for destroyers and some of the zippier cruisers, but it is not something you want to be using in battleships. Omaha is an inch from death here, and that looks like it's sealed his fate. Down he goes, and we're just about to cap out as the enemy carrier finally gets spotted.